Daniel Brea is a multi-talented filmmaker and entrepreneur who has found success in both the commercial and indie film worlds. After starting his career in Europe, he made the move to LA and has built a versatile skill set from directing to producing to teaching. I saw him in my Instagram feed and had to reach out to get him on the show. With a passion for storytelling and a knack for problem solving, Daniel has carved out a unique path in the industry and is dedicated to helping others do the same. He's my brother from another mother. Helen, start the show.
It's time for Respect the Process, a short chat about commercial filmmaking. Here's your host, Director Jordan Brady.
Helen, I look back at 2024, and as we go into 2025, that'll be 5 years since Commercial Directing Film School has had online courses. My master class, the shadow class, how to pitch, how to do a treatment. And I must be a terrible business person because I give away a free one-on-one consultation call with every online class I have. For 5 years, this will be 5 years of doing that. So you buy this class, you get candid behind the scenes of me directing, you're with the agency in Video Village, you're learning how I work with actors, run the crew, pick the locations, you name it. And then I do a one-on-one personalized call to answer questions. It's a tremendous value, but look at my time. Am I crazy? Well, they're all at commercialdirectingfilmschool.com, and I'm trying out a new website, spotschool.online. Now, it leads to the other website. I just thought it was kind of catchy and easy to remember, spotschool.online. So try the Commercial Directing Master Class and DM me if you need a discount. I'm always giving away the discount because I'm a bad business person. Speaking of discounts, if you use the code Brady20, you save on Magic Mind, which is my morning performance elixir when it comes to my brain. It's brain juice. It keeps me focused. It gets me in flow state. It does not give me the jitters. And the code Brady20 saves you money. I don't know how much, Helen. Stop looking at me like that. Sometimes when I do these promo things, Helen holds up flashcards for me. It says Brady20, and now she's holding up, talk about the ashwagandha and the lion's mane and the vitamin B and the vitamin 12 and all the vitamins. Helen, I know what's in this stuff. Yes, I know it's ceremonial grade matcha. You don't have to tell me. The Filmmaker Retreat is coming up in September. If you're listening before the end of the year, there is a discount if you've taken the master class or any online class. I think it's $200 off. And if you want to return, if you're a listener that's been a part of this magical transformational experience, by all means, you know the code or you can DM me for it. You save $500. That'd be $700 if you do it before the end of the year, but you're probably listening sometime in January. I don't really have much more to say. I want to get to Daniel Brea because Daniel also has courses and does consultations. And when he showed up in I think it was Instagram feed, very unassuming, handsome fella in a t-shirt saying, stop trying to be a one-man band. You need to learn how to delegate and build a team. That's where the money is. And I couldn't agree more. I mean, if you want to be a one-person band, a one-woman band, a one-man band, a one-day band, any kind of one-person thing, that's cool. And I get the zen of that, but there is a ceiling you're going to hit because you only have so many hours in the day. So that's why I love this conversation with Daniel. Helen, how about I stop rambling, talking a mile a minute, and let's get to Daniel. Daniel Brea, if that's your real name.
You'll never know.
You know how we met is your ads show up in my feed. And what I love is they're kind of lo-fi, if you don't mind me saying, and they're perfect for Instagram. And I was like, who is this guy? And you said exactly what I believe, that you're never going to scale
with your $1,000 video shoot and grabbing your camera and investing in all the gear and doing it as a one-man band. And so, as anyone knows, once you like a person's thing, now you're hooked. So that's how I met you. I was like, this guy is a kindred spirit.
That's interesting because I know you. I don't think you run ads, or maybe you do, but I've somehow, maybe it's because you liked my stuff, but you started appearing here and there to me as well. And then there was this long kind of period where I didn't really see anything by you, but then you hit me up for the podcast. So I was like, oh, I remember this. I think I haven't run an email or something from you, like from your mailing list or something.
Yeah, I ran ads from 2020 when I launched online courses through about a year ago. Mm-hmm. And in the teaching and the optics of teaching were getting in the way. It was questioned by a couple of agency friends like, wow, this film school is going so well. Do you even want to direct commercials? And I was like, stop the press. This is my passion. I love teaching. It is a true calling, but I got to back off the ads because I don't want people to think I'm pivoting. I'm doing them both concurrent. So you didn't see ads for a long time, and maybe we'll gear up end of the year if we do a Christmas sale.
Gotcha. Great. Well,
here we are.
I'm glad that my ads seem to be hitting the appropriate demographic, I think, and B, that you cared enough and that it resonated with you. So I know that I'm not completely full of crap. So,
well, but tell me about the philosophy and what got you to put your experience into a course.
Well, the short version of it is that when I came here many, many, many moons ago, and here being Los Angeles.
Where'd you come from? Florida?
No, I grew up in Europe for a long, like Israel, Switzerland. I have 3 passports, and I'm kind of a child of the world, if you will. Not because I'm not an army brat or anything like that. I was born here in the States in Minnesota, but I was 2 weeks old when my parents got divorced, and my mom took myself and my sister to Switzerland because that's where her parents were, and she needed a little help. So that's how that came about. And then I thought I was going to be an actor, and I idolized Jim Carrey, being goofy. Didn't do well in school, not grade wise. Didn't do well in school in terms of just ADD, not paying attention, not really caring. Didn't interest me, but I was tinkering and doing little puppet shows and recording with my uncle's camera and staging little war battles with Legos on the balcony and setting things on fire. So I always had a kind of an interest in making little videos and stories. So much later, years past, I had an opportunity to intern with an old family friend who had a production company in Europe. I liked it. He taught me everything. Stayed there for about 8 months, and then I was like, well, this is a small market. Like, I'm not gonna be able to grow, because if I'm gonna do something, why not go where it's best? And
you're gonna be a bear, be a grizzly.
Be a grizzly and get deep into the woods, like just live where the bears live and play with them. I don't like the big fish in small pond idea. I mean, it fits a lot of people, and I'm not crapping on it. I'd rather try to be a decent sized fish in a nice big ocean. So that's what brought me here. But then, I learned very quickly that people weren't just going to roll out the red carpet for me. And I didn't really have any contacts here, and, nepotism's real and connections and blah, blah, blah. So I did have to kind of fight my own way because, I was telling everybody that by the time I moved here, by the way, I had already decided that my work was going to be behind the camera, but I realized that nobody's going to give me any opportunities. And so I started just understanding, taking the filmmaking skills that I learned with my buddy, shooting and editing and all that stuff. And, convinced my girlfriend to co-sign on a loan because I had no credit to buy my first camera and computer.
Is she your wife now?
She is my wife now.
I love that.
she committed financially and never let me go. So I still owe her those, I think, $8,000 for that first purchase.
I think you ought to just pay her off, just symbolically give her the money.
You know what? Maybe I'm actually going to do that. I haven't thought about that in 17 years, but you know,
take her to dinner on an anniversary and give her a card, and in the card is a check for that $8,000, and say, because you probably have a joint account somewhere, so it's going back to you, and just say, I love you and you believed in me. Thank you.
I'm actually going to do that because her birthday's coming up soon, and
even better.
What a great opportunity. So flash forward, nobody's giving me chances. I'm realizing it's harder than I think. And then I've always had this like figure it out yourself mentality. Maybe it's because we moved so much. I never really put down roots. I always had to kind of adapt. So I just started trying to, figure out how to get gigs and talking to people. And I actually came up with a good balance of independent work that I whipped up myself for businesses and realtors and whatever I could find. And then, of course, trying to like chip away at getting some movie industry stuff going, some connections, and, had a script I was trying to get off the ground. And so I was kind of getting to know more people there and how that works. And in that process, I realized that a few years went by and I was making okay money. I was able to stabilize after a while. And I was starting to get better jobs, and actually even started working on the commercial side with agencies eventually too, which you're very familiar with. And when those gigs come around, it's really nice. But it's a little unpredictable, right? So I did, though, grow into this habit of doing everything myself, because before I knew anything about how to price my services well for myself, or what I was actually worth, or what my services were worth, I would have this mentality of, well, if I get $1,000 for a video, some little thing, and I were to pay an editor to do work on it, or bring in a cinematographer or DP or something to shoot it, then what am I going to keep? Like $300, $400, $500? And I'd rather have the whole 1,000. But that was a backwards mentality, because what I realized happened after a couple of years of operating that way, which is leading me to your question, that I
wondered about that.
Exactly. When's he getting to the point? I was burning out. I was like 100 hours a week, like shooting, editing, staying up at night, trying to deliver on an edit that's due in the morning, and then you're caught up in the job. And then you're not finding new clients because you're dealing with the current ones, and you're working on the actual projects, and you say 2 rounds of revision, but it always turns into
4. Yeah.
Just more and more. And it puts you in this weird vicious cycle. And I realized over time that people that were giving me jobs down the line too, I was sharing with them. So a friend of mine would come and throw me a gig, and he'd be like, look, let's split it 50-50. And I'm like, okay, cool. But like, all he did was get the job, and I'm doing everything, and he's getting 50%. And I'm like, okay, well, I need to learn how to get the job. And then I won't be so clingy to whatever jobs I do have. And if I know how to get the job and I can free up my time, then I'm okay with making 30 or 50%, because then I can spend that time now going out and getting more work. And so I started delegating where it hurt first. The edit is usually the thing that takes the most time. So I started just by, no matter what, committing that I was going to work with an editor. And that's how it started. Then I realized, well, oh my goodness, like, yeah, I'm paying somebody, but I have like 2 extra days a week now that I can go out and do more stuff with. So as long as you're productive with the time, I just realized that it just wasn't a smart way to move forward if I ever wanted to have a proper family or time to go on vacation or, anything really. Because
that totally makes sense. And the analogy in my life, I won't go in the Wayback Machine to when I was doing everything, but it's the same story. Self-taught, got an editing setup, was in the garage, was cutting, renting gear to deliver revisions. it's analogous to from the DSLR revolution into now the mirrorless affordable camera revolution in rap videos. And the rap artist and hip hop, right? Most of them mumble, and I see a different director, air quotes, who's done it all, probably for $500, and I see a different one for the same artist every couple of months, because there's no value and there's no loyalty. And there's probably other examples. That's just in my world, I see a lot of.
That's a great example.
Really cool hip hop videos done by a one man or one woman army. But then you can tell either the filmmaker chose to move on or the artist said, well, let's get a new person for $500 if the original person wanted more. So there's that component of how do you build, how do you scale, those videos lead to more videos of that ilk and of that budget.
Level. Yeah, exactly.
The other point, Daniel, is by delegating, hopefully, you got to delegate to elevate. Your work is better. So what I profess is to filmmakers all the time, hey, if you can even make considerably less, but hire a cinematographer and hopefully someone you can grow with that's got game, then you're just the director. And by just the director, you're probably producing, you might still be editing, but if you can get that cinematographer and her eye is a little sharper than yours, her level of taste is just has a little more panache, you're going to elevate your work that's going to get better work. So the creative side is enhanced by building a team. And the financial side, you're growing a business and building a team that I think aligns with what your courses say.
You're 100% right. And your focus is now narrower, which means you're becoming more skilled and in tune with directing. So you can actually focus on the creative and working with the actor and getting a better performance because your head's not on where the key light should be. And so you're so right with that. And I think the paradox becomes that this is the cycle that filmmakers can't break out of or can't seem to, this is what I try to help with, that they're in this kind of budget range or rut, kind of like this tier of jobs where they don't feel like they could bring in somebody at the right level to do it. But I would even take what you're saying one step further and say, spend all your budget then on other people, because make this next one like so good. And by the way, just your friend who has a camera, that's not a DP. Like we're talking about somebody who actually is obsessed with cinematography and lighting and motion and can really do an incredible job in that specific space. And then, you're never going to catch up to that skill level because you're not putting the amount of time and effort in that person is. And so I do think that there's still a lot of people who say, well, if you want it done right, you got to do it yourself. But in this industry with making films and videos, with the right team, with the right people, which might take you a little bit to find potentially, but with that, it could not be further from the truth. You're 100% misguided if you thought that you're going to do the writing, the directing while you're producing, you're going to shoot it and you're going to edit it and you're going to do the sound and you're going to fix the sound. You're going to do the score and the Foley and the effects and the deliverables, and you're all going to do that yourself. And you think you're going to get a better result than individuals are professional and focused in every one of those fields?
For the listener, I'll point out the exceptions. The Robert Rodriguez has every credit on the film, and he has a niche and a point of view, but we're not all him. Right. We're not all that, and it's a very specific thing that he does. Right. The director DP should be obsessed with both directing and DP, and I knew a lot of director DPs starting out that say, no, I want to, like, I at least need an operator and a great gaffer. So there's still it's not really an exception. And some director DPs will hire a DP so they can focus if the job at hand requires maybe hand holding the actors a little more, right?
Yeah.
The other exception would be the late Morgan Spurlock style or documentary. Like yours truly has made some documentaries where it's me in the 4K camcorder, and that's a different thing. But make sure, listeners, filmmakers, and I think Daniel's going to nod his head, that handmade documentary never got me another commercial. It got me other handmade documentaries and those are micro, nano, niche, no budget, tourniquet on spending documentaries. So I only bring it up to be controversial.
But I do. Okay, so that's great. But I will add to that. Of course, you can shoot and edit and stuff. And, I just mentioned, like, I came up that way. I really think that I can shoot and edit and deliver something really good, and I can do it a lot faster than if I did work with a team. And that's another thing. However, you have to make a choice. If you want to be a filmmaker, if you want your life to be the brand, the job, and you're the one that is getting hired to shoot and edit because that's your unique selling proposition, because you come in as a one-man band or woman and you do travel videos and you get to fly around the world and have a great time with your girlfriend, and it's just you shooting and editing and the content's amazing. Like, I'm not saying you can't deliver great stuff that way, but it's a choice. I was okay with that for a few years. It just happened. I hit a ceiling, and you're going to have to either start charging a lot more for what you do, which means you have to specialize and become like the #1 music video shooter, editor, or whatever.
Pancakes. You're the guy that does pancakes.
You're the pancake guy. Or you have to make a decision and say, I want to have a business, but I want to, not be tied to every single job. And that's when you need to start, thinking maybe that way. And I like the producer role or the company owner role. It comes with its drawbacks, if you will, because now you have to run people, you have to manage people on projects and timelines, and that's got its own challenges. But to me, it's always nice because I have the option. I can step in and out of something. I can say, you know what, you guys take care of this whole thing, and I'll approve the script. I'll check the dailies, and I'll check the final cut before it goes out. Or I could jump in and say I'm going to direct this one. So I like that flexibility.
You mentioned as a company owner, I have found that as the budgets have gotten tighter and the deliverables have expanded, as a company owner of TrueGent.tv, you can learn more at TrueGent.tv. I have been at the helm of a couple of commercial projects, specifically since the spring, where my company is handling the production, the edit, and the animation for two different clients, like the end animation thing. But I apply the same philosophy as a Daniel Brea. I hire an edit house and an editor, and I hire an animation, graphics, CG, all-in-one company. It's a couple of brothers that I've used this year. Spiffy. Learn more at spiffy.la. Spiffy LA? Shout out to Spiffy LA. I'm not sure of the website, but Adam and his brother do kick-ass work, and I'm supervising. So it's no different. It's an extension of directing, producing. But as a company owner, I'm marking up that cost. And this is what drew me back to your Instagram ads is you're making money, not a lot, but you're making money off just producing, off supervising, off delegating. And that comes with time and quality control. But here's the big trick. As directors in Hollywood, how many directors get final cut? In commercials, directors are in North America not always invited to the edit. So we complain that, oh, they fucked up the edit. Oh, I should have been in it. They should let me do the edit. It should be like Europe. Well, here's a chance, Jordan, to do everything. Now, there's still clients and agency people. It's still very collaborative, but you're asserting your point of view into everything.
And if you don't mind me jumping into that.
Jump in, Daniel. It's a podcast, man.
It is the main, well, maybe not main, but you, Jordan, now, because of how you've structured things, would have no problem, team-wise, resource-wise, and time-wise, to just go out and shoot a short of your own that you feel like doing, or some kind of a project, a passion project that you have the ability to develop and focus on, like the stories that you personally would want to tell. Let's face it, whether you're producing or not, the brand that you're working with, the company that you're working with, they're always going to have something to say about what you're turning in. When you create an environment like this, the one that you've created for yourself and me, it doesn't matter. We can try to raise private equity. We can write a script. We can make our own movie if we would like to. We could work with other people on other projects if we would like to, but we're not beholden to anybody, and we don't depend on some investor and their conditions. And I think that's incredibly liberating. So I kind of look at it as like a two-part thing where the company is sort of your, I always equate it to a cruise ship. And in a cruise ship, you have the beautiful upper decks where all the fun stuff happens, but the damn thing isn't going anywhere without the smelly, hot engine room down underneath. And you can't, the whole thing is the important thing, but one without the other makes no sense. Just the engines, what's it bringing anywhere? And just the upper decks, you got a glorified, island. So you need both. And I think it's a perfect analogy for this. You have your company, it's still within your wheelhouse. It's fun because we love doing production and we love being creative, but it's like 80% there in terms of fulfillment, right? 70.
Right. Creative satisfaction. When you're a hired gun, be it a film, I don't speak too much to episodic television, but you're definitely, that's probably the most hired gun, least voice you have, in my opinion, just being around it peripherally. But commercials and movies, I wish we disagreed on something. Maybe the puppets. Maybe we should go back to your puppets in Switzerland. But
I disagree with that too, though. So we'd agree on that.
I love puppets, but my docs and a short we did with my two sons, it's pure indulgence.
Yeah.
And I don't care. I remember the last documentary that I directed. One of my best friends is a comedian he's in it, and he has great opinions on. He's a student of cinema, and he goes, "Hey, do you want me to?" I sent him a cut, or the cut. And he goes, "Do you want some notes?" And I go, "No, I'm good. I'll listen to my wife." My wife has just laser-like insights on, hey, move that to the front. You got to open with this. You got to close that. So I do listen to her, and by doing so, I also keep the marriage intact.
Sure. There's that.
Wait, but tell me about the puppets. Here's what's great about the puppets in Switzerland. How old were you?
I'm 8.
10,
maybe.
8 or 10. Okay, 8 years old. Did you make the puppets, or they're store-bought puppets?
It was Lamb Chop and Hush Puppy.
Lamb Chop with Sherry Lewis was. You'll have to Google it, you younger viewers, and I'm surprised you're even old enough to know.
We get reruns.
I don't even. She was a ventriloquist, and she would have that plastered smile showing her teeth, and she would talk Lamb Chop like this. And I think Lamb Chop was a lamb puppet that would violently beat its head on the wall or something if it were bad or wanted to make a point. I could be confusing it with a bunny, but the puppet to me is one of the perfect entryways, is that a word? into gateways into directing, because you're manipulating the performer as well as the shot. The puppets are the best because you can get a little emotion out of them.
Mm-hmm.
So at 8 years old, you subconsciously knew your role behind the camera
Well, and
was going to take off.
I like what you're saying there too, because I particularly liked Lamb Chop because it was a little bit like a sock puppet and had a very flexible mouth. So I was able to really get expressions out, as opposed to the hard head puppets that have nothing. So I think you're right there. It makes you really think about the character and what they're looking like and where they're looking. So yeah, that's a big one.
Puppeteers, by the way, shout out to professional puppeteers who can bring an inanimate object to life and show emotion.
Mm-hmm.
The sock puppet style that this Lamb Chop was, it allows you to frown or be happy, and all the more kudos to the Sesame Street style, because they have to do it with a head nod and a turn. And I puppeted two toothbrushes in the toothbrush holder, falling in love and flirting and eventually kissing once. And it just recently was puppeting a Funko collectible figurine on a turntable, because it's inanimate. It doesn't move. Like, it's not articulated really. And it was just the way it had to turn was comedic. So I love getting my hands dirty.
I love that.
Before I forget, where should people, when they click on your name, even on the Apple podcast, the hyperlink is there, and they're going to click on your name, where's that going to take them?
I think
of course, your website.
No, I think the Dream Reach Media website, it's not a fancy site. I also tell that to my students, like, that it's not about what the site looks like. It's about what you do with it. But I think for information overall, like, the Dream Reach Media website is probably good. I have some cool things there for actors and filmmakers. I developed a cool, like, branding app if you want to, like, find out what kind of filmmaker you are, what kind of an actor are you, and you can go through and take that little personality test. And there's obviously more information about my program, Mastermind, but there's also like a webinar that I put up just about this kind of stuff that I hosted recently for free. So, and if you want to get in touch with me, there's a contact email address there as well. So that's probably the best place to go start your scrutinizing of me.
Thank you. You still haven't really answered my question, is when you made the decision to put out the material to share the knowledge and to teach. And I'll tell you mine real quick. I love learning. And I don't know if I've talked about this on this podcast. Listeners, forgive me if I have. I took a directing horror movie course taught by Wes Craven
Cool.
at Long Beach University. And it was in an auditorium, and he had actors like do a scene from Scream, and he had a projector and he showed clips, and he just talked. And I'm not a horror fan. I've never made horror. I just thought, let me step out of my comfort zone.
Cool.
And I tell all directors, take an acting class or an improv class.
100%.
Right? Because then you kind of know what the actors are going through, and you can talk to them better, and there's a little more empathy. So I take this horror thing, probably like 2003, 2002, right? So we're talking 20 some years ago. And I was like, you know what? Then I was doing these commercials where I had to do, they were like puzzles for Eggo waffles. Everything was there were effects and giant 20-foot props and all this shit. And I had to really do the work, right? Because it wasn't just comedy dialogue, which is kind of easy to prep. It was like, I have to figure this out. I got to collaborate with post. I got to talk to effects. Stan Winston's Legacy Effects were building these, like a 20-foot toaster and shit. And it was like, oh my God, this is like, that's where I learned you got to fix it and prep.
Okay. Yes.
So around 2005, 2006, I go, you know what? I'm going to share this knowledge. Like, I wish someone told me how important it was to prep and collaborate and blah, blah, blah. And it wasn't until 10 years later, 2015, I had the first commercial directing boot camp. The next one's December 14th here in Los Angeles. And it was a blast. And I've done it ever since 2000, coming up with this is our 9th year. But the pandemic forced me to do it online. And so it was out of necessity. But now we have the boot camp, the online courses, and the retreat that we just had a couple of weeks ago. I don't know when this comes out, but it was the end of September, early 1st of October. So that's my journey taking, that's 20 years in the making.
Yeah.
You came to the realization how fun it is to teach and give away knowledge much sooner than I.
Well, first of all, little legacy plug there. I love those guys. Swifty there is one of the OGs there. He's
Christopher Swift?
Yeah. You know Swifty?
Holy shit. Daniel, Christopher Swift was the guy in the Eggo waffle costume.
There you go, man.
And I've been trying to get him on the podcast. If you're in touch with him,
let me talk to him.
Tell him. I talk about him all the time. I mentioned him in this interview they did about all these spots. They were like, before CapCut was an app on your TikTok, there was Christopher Swift as the waffle man in these spots we did.
Yeah, and he's he was the Raptors in Jurassic Park in the original, and he
was in Alien. Much. He was he had to be an Alien. I saw his name in the credits for.
He's in everything.
Romulus.
Been with them for a long time, and all from Jurassic Park all the way through Avatar and Terminator and everything. So he's a really, really talented guy, which is also why he's extremely busy and hard to wrangle down. But I'm happy to maybe see if shoot him a text and see if he's around. So.
One day he was working on Team Weta back in the day, like one of the first Hobbit, Lord of the Rings things, right? Mm-hmm. And we got, and I hope, I don't want to disparage anyone. And they had another guy from, it was called Stan Winston's company back then, okay, before he passed. So they sent another person to be another breakfast pastry. Right, because Christopher was a waffle, he was French toast, he was a cinnamon bun, he was whatever other products. He was a chocolate chip waffle, and he just talk about puppeteering. I mean, he's in a suit and adding emotion to a faceless character with just his arms and legs.
Well, and on top of that, he also designs those,
and he builds them.
The builder.
Oh yeah. So he wasn't available, and they sent another person who was great. It was great, but it was like, there was a little je ne sais quoi that was missing, that Christopher had, like this nuance of how he performed as the waffle. It's insane, man.
But see, we're tying back into what we said earlier. A specialist who is so passionate about building and puppeteering, has been doing it for so long with all these great people. There's no way you're going to puppeteer your own waffle and be as good as Swifty. There's no way.
Oh, that's so funny. What a wonderful sidetrack here. So I think you were I told you my
so how this whole thing started. Well, really, after a while, like I said, I had built up a little bit of momentum on both sides, meaning the commercial and industrial space, and I'm kind of lumping industrials and commercial into one thing, service.
Yeah, thanks.
And they're not, right? But just for this argument, service for a company versus production.
Sure.
Right? Built up a lot there. And I realized there were friends and colleagues on both sides that were always freaking out and sort of looking to me for answers, which was kind of ironic to me because I always had a bit of imposter syndrome. Filmmakers from the movie side, producers, directors, anybody in that would suffer extreme volatility. A friend would sell a TV show and for 2 years suddenly nothing, and it would be feast or famine and all that. And on the other side, Also with agency work, it could be a little up and down because if you're not in with multiple agencies or whatever, like you don't really know when they're going to call you for what. And you can't really just hit them up and be like, I need work.
Right.
So they would also just kind of struggle with fulfillment, though, more so, like just wanting to also make movies and so forth. So I found myself kind of doing consulting, and I did consult for a couple of indie production companies and stuff. Also, just look at a list of production companies over the last 20 years that make movies, and tell me how many of those are even still around. Like, just they go bankrupt every Friday because movies are tricky. And you can raise funds for a slate and none of them convert, and your investors go and you go, right? So there's this whole issue on the movie side too. So I would always, help people kind of understand how to take their producing skills and teams and stuff they're doing with movies and maybe stabilize with some kind of a, client direct offer or some service, or, even within the industry, adding services like being a post house or doing other things for people to just stabilize. So you're not just trying to make movies. And so that started happening maybe in like 2017, 18, when I started really scaling into my demo reel company, because I was doing demo reels for actors and people were like, you're crazy. Why are you doing that? That's weird. But it was stability and it was fun and there were a lot of benefits to it.
It's a niche.
It's a niche. And you mentioned acting classes. I fell into that niche because I was convinced by an acting coach, Ivana Chubbuck, thank you so much, you're a wonderful person, that to come to her class to see how she works with actors. And as a director, she thought I would benefit from it, and she just let me join and sit there for free next to her and see how she works with them. Learned a lot. Also learned that actors, when they perform and are directed, can do incredible stuff, and then they send you their reel and it's dog shit. And you're like, this is not good, because these are talented people. Like, they need to be seen this way, but this is in acting class. So I was like, I need to, shoot stuff and present what you do here so that you can go to managers, agents and stuff and start being seen that way. So that's
if it's a 2 lines on Law and Order 3 or whatever, then you cut that in, there's not a lot of context, and your reaction and your 1 or 2 lines belies your depth.
Yeah, it's not a performance. It's here's a knife, Tom Hardy. Like,
yeah.
It's impressed by that. We're looking for characters and movement and shifts, and we want to see you act. So that became something where I was just like, okay, there's a clear problem. There's a huge need for this, and we'll see what pricing structure works, but people are willing to pay. So that's a win for me. It's a win for them because they get good material and it legitimately helps. And it only helps if it doesn't look like a demo reel. Like, it has to be done right, which does drive the cost up a bit. But that was, and that's leading into how this whole thing happened. I was scaling that, and I had a lot of clients for that. We were doing over a feature film's worth of reels every month. Like,
wow,
a lot. And
you're directing them all, or you're bringing in other directors?
Fully delegated. I did the first 2 or 3, and then I built teams, and I was just making sure that there was enough margins to keep the thing growing. And it was great. Like, it really was a great thing, and we were growing and growing, and we were even going to expand into other cities. And then to 2020 thing happened where just, everybody got shut down. Nobody was able to produce, as you recalled.
Yeah.
And I had been consulting, like I said already, for a few years, because I was doing that and I was kind of sharing my knowledge on how to market services, create niches, create offers, and helping people balance their finances a bit. And then when it shut down, all my endeavors, whether it was agency work or a film I was developing, I had a movie funded. We were on the way to the Dominican. That, dissolved. All the demo reels, everything just evaporated overnight, as I'm sure it did for a lot of people. And I think you recall, we all thought, well, in a couple of weeks, water your cacti, and
yeah,
we'll be back soon.
We'll be back.
Oh, that didn't happen. So I very quickly realized that, expenses are still there, but nothing's coming in. And production didn't seem like it was going to be anything really feasible at the same scale or level that I already had going. So I was thinking, well, I had about 40 or 50 actors who had put deposits down for a demo reel. And I had to choose if I was going to give that money back, which is painful, or try to give them something else that's equally or even more valuable, right? And because
I know that I was in that position with a boot camp that was for April, and I go, well, 2 weeks, it will be back. And I sent out a couple of emails, and then it was, you can either have the money back, or I'm going to push it to June. And then June, I think we had to push again. And I think one person out of 20 people. No, we cut it to 15 because of the space. We wanted to space out, which was a blessing, actually, for my bandwidth. But it's the same thing. I was like, God, I kind of spent the money, but I got to give them an offer. So, yeah, go ahead. So did people choose this new product?
Right. So then I thought, well, what if we're all, I just used my brain a little bit, and I thought to myself, well, what problem am I really solving with the demo reel? And then I realized, well, I'm actually solving part of the actor's problem, but there's an opportunity to solve a much bigger issue. And that is that actors have to also survive between acting jobs, even more established ones. Mm-hmm. And so they take on side hustles or jobs like serving or Uber, like flexible things that generally aren't known to have very high pay. I mean, if you bartend at the right restaurant in LA, you can make a killing, right? But let's face it, most actors, it's not a very lucrative lifestyle in between acting gigs and so forth. So, and if you look at every actor's that's made it to a certain point, every single one of them, with the exception of maybe Al Pacino, has their own production company.
Absolutely.
They all
Reese Witherspoon.
Everybody.
Like book deal that leads to her options to Apple shows. Like so many great actors have exploited and leveraged their fame to have big production shingles. And I would say that the actor who is a working actor that, like you say, has to fill in the in-betweens should do the same thing. You may not get the option from Apple or Hulu, but you can still produce stuff. Exactly. What I think, by the way, is another podcast you and I should do about producing, raising funds, and going out and doing independent stuff. It's a little off topic from this show with commercials, but I think listeners, email and hit Daniel and I up separately or together on Instagram and send a message if that's an interesting topic.
Yeah, please do it.
But I cut you off. You're saying that you told these actors that.
Well, I told them that, and it's like, well, yeah, okay, you can look at it one way. You get to a certain point with your acting, and then you start producing because you're the asset and blah, blah, blah. Or you could start with producing and actually create your own path and monetize that skill set. Like Vin Diesel didn't really get a lot of shots until he made his own short film and actually was seen for that. So not to veer too far off topic again, you can. So I asked everybody, hey, instead of me doing the reel for you, why don't I break down my entire process, how to brand you, develop the scripts, how to even find a writer if you need one, how to build the team and all that. Not you do it yourself, but just like actually how I would produce this from start to finish. And then I'll coach you over Zoom to do your own. And wherever you are in the world, because we have clients from Florida and other places, I'll help you just produce this. Like I'll be there for you to coach you through it. And so that's what I did. And everybody wanted to do it because I kind of pitched them on the other benefits of having those skill sets, right? The fact that they could make their own stuff. And then once that was done, when I sort of built out, because I was kind of like building the curriculum a few days before I was offering it to them, and, just kind of gauging where they're at and sort of tweaking and sort of building as I was going through it. And then I got through the whole thing and had that all built out. And I realized, well, I could just show you how to structure a good script for an ad, and you could go do that for a local business. So that now like the basics. Well, now you need to know how to market and sell these skills and actually make some money off of that. Because if I can tell you now how to go get the leads and how to advertise the way I did, or how to even do just organic outreach without having to spend money on ads and get some clients to come in, well, now you can even support your acting journey when you're not acting, and you're completely independent. So then that's how this like online program came about. But then after a year or two of doing that, I realized, well, why am I only doing this with actors? That there are so many filmmakers that need this too. And so then I just expanded out to bring in filmmakers as well. So that was really kind of the genesis. And I have my mom was an educator, and I mean, there's something incredibly fulfilling being able to see somebody like do something that they never thought they could.
It's such a reward. I always, someone will say, "Hey man, thanks for helping me out." If I, do a quick call or whatever, I'm like, your success is my reward. And it sounds so corny, Daniel, but for me, it's like when I see someone get that first spot, or, a guy wrote me from Bangkok in the middle of the night, because over there it's another day, saying, "Hey, thanks for our chat." And Paul Moore, and shout out to Paul. And I was like, I didn't really do anything. I just kind of listened and guided, but it's all you. And it feels so good to see his finished spots because they're killer.
But you know what, that's what you said, like we have all this experience and knowledge in our brains, and we forget sometimes how even just, a couple of sentences, when you don't know what you don't know, being told by somebody who's clearly done it many times, here's what you do and here's what you don't do, that alone right there can give so much focus and confidence that somebody can go out and now close a $100,000 deal as opposed to maybe a $3,000 deal because they didn't know what they were doing. So your words are money. They really are. From all that experience that you've had, this is not easy experience to come by.
You're giving away the keys to the kingdom. Daniel, I have to wrap up. This has been a great chat. Listeners, do reach out. Click on the links. But the show is called Respect the Process. And so everyone ends the show by answering this question. What does that term mean to you, respect the process?
That's a really good question. Let me see.
Isn't it?
It is. I really like that.
5 seconds on the clock.
Damn, I'm not good under pressure. I think respecting the process to me has a little bit more to do with, okay, I'll say an analogy and then I'll be done. It's not as wordy as maybe I could make it, but there's a thing out there that says if you wanted a race of perfect humans that are great at building, great at socializing, great at loving, great at everything, industry, finance, everything's perfect, would you take our children to build this race and put them through hard things or put them through easy things? Most people would say hard, right?
Yeah.
So you're understanding by saying that the hard way is the way.
Mm-hmm.
That there is no reward without actually moving forward and dealing with the pains that come with it. And so respecting the process, I think, to me means don't be flippant about it. Don't think that you're going to overnight become some kind of a, mogul. But if you really want, sincerely to influence the world with moving pictures and stories and express yourselves and help people and be something that, lives on through time and space, through the stuff that you put out there, then respect the process in the sense that, respect yourself enough to understand that it's a commitment that you're making to a lifestyle, and it's not always fun, but it's worth it. So learn what you can learn from people, from yourself. Stay in motion. Don't sit around and
right.
think about it too much. But I think it just means, find your way, but be okay with it being hard. And that's the good thing. You will get good and it'll pay off and it's worth it. But you're ultimately the person, you're your own savior, and putting yourself through challenges so that you can develop the skills to figure out how to solve challenges. It'll make you grow, and it'll make you better, and it'll make you independent. So I think, it's a long answer, but
it's a great answer. Siddhartha had to leave the cuddled walls of the kingdom to experience and witness suffering and famine, disease, and hardship before he became the Buddha.
Yeah, that's so true. I mean, everybody wants the reward, but most people
do the work.
You do. And
Daniel, thank you for being a super guest. I'm so glad you did the podcast and we got to chat. I feel we're kindred spirits.
Yeah.
And come back anytime.
Thank you.
And the links are going to be everywhere. And thanks again.
Absolutely, Jordan.
Talk to you later, man.
All right. Take care.
Bye.
Commercial Directing Film School's mission is to help filmmakers direct commercials professionally. With online courses and in-person boot camps, we demystify the process to get you to the next level. All taught by your accessible mentor, filmmaker Jordan Brady.
True Gentleman Industries. We make commercials.